The second the school bell rang, I ran. Out the doors, down the street, lungs burning with adrenaline. Not from fear, from urgency. I had one weekend. 48 hours without parents, without judgmental eyes. 48 hours to breathe, to become her. Megan. The name pulsed in my chest like a secret too loud to contain. I had whispered it in mirrors, scribbled it in margins, dreamed it in silence. Now I was ready to wear it. To wear her. All week I'd rehearsed it like a mission who I'd be, how I'd walk, what she'd wear. My heart hammered as I reached the door, the key trembling in my hand. This wasn't pretend anymore. This was escape. This was freedom. This was me. At that age, thin, smooth-skinned, barely a suggestion of a beard, I could vanish into her easily. Just a few wisps of hair to shave, a quick soak in the bath, and I was ready. The water was hot, fragrant, and I lingered in it, letting the warmth loosen my limbs and quiet the noise in my mind. When I stepped out, it was with purpose. I unlocked my security box, my secret trove, the treasure chest that held Megan's world. Inside, birdseed breast forms, a dainty bra, clean panties, pantyhose, a modest pair of heels, my well-loved makeup kit, and the dress. The one dress. I laid them out like sacred artifacts, reverent, breath-catching, as I smoothed a hand over the pale fabric. Every piece had meaning. Every item was a whisper of who I wanted to be. I started with the panties soft, snug, grounding, then to the mirror for my face. I'd studied the girls at school like a scientist observing butterflies. What shades they used, how they blended shadows. I went with a pale plum and tan for my eyes, thin black liner on top, soft blue smudged beneath. My foundation evened me out, gave me the illusion of something I hadn't yet grown into. I didn't rush. Each step was a ceremony. Back in my room, I slipped into the bra 34A with a front clasp and tucked the birdseed forms in place, twisting the knots so they sat like small, proud nipples. A trick I'd taught myself. The pantyhose, as always, sent a shiver up my spine. Then came the shoes, white, low-heeled, but enough to lift me just a little. And finally, the dress. Soft yellow, sheath style, with a skirt that flared ever so slightly mid-thigh. It hugged me, transformed me, completed me. I added pearl earrings, clip-ons until now, and a choker to match. My lips went soft pink, just enough to glow. I filled my purse with essentials ID, cash, breath mints, and took one last look before heading into the kitchen. My heels clicked against the hardwood like applause. I didn't try to mute it. I wanted the sound. I wanted all of it. Dinner was what Mom had left heat and eat, but I barely tasted it. By 7, I was back in front of the mirror, reapplying my lips, stealing a spritz of her perfume. Maybe I didn't look as good as I imagined, but I felt right. That counted for more. Out the back door. Cool night air rushed up my dress, kissed my thighs. I inhaled deeply. It wasn't just oxygen, it was freedom. I walked straight down the driveway, heels clicking like metronomes. No glances to the side, just eyes on the sidewalk. At the corner, I turned toward Greenwood Plaza. My nerves buzzed, but each step steadied me. The sound of my heels was thunder in my ears. It had taken me months to work up the courage, to believe I belonged, even just for an hour. Greenwood loomed ahead, and I didn't hesitate. I stepped inside. The store was busy, fluorescent, and unforgiving, but I held my head high. I drifted to the women's section, fingering racks of dresses, pretending I belonged because I did. I needed a second dress, maybe a skirt, something to give Megan options. More panties too, another bra, different shoes. But money was tight. I moved like a shadow between displays, heart hammering anytime someone looked my way. But I didn't flinch. I'd read that nervousness gave you away. I was here to be her, to be me. In the dress aisle, one hand on a skirt, the other hovering over a sundress, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I froze. Turning slowly, I faced a girl I didn't recognize. She held up 2 pairs of pants. Hey, hun, red or green? The lime green was hideous. I pointed at the red. Thought so too, thanks. She smiled and walked away. I exhaled so hard I nearly laughed. The moment passed. I kept browsing, selected a floral dress, then found a blouse to match the skirt I still clutched. I got in line. Then I saw her. Not just someone. Her, Grandma Judy. Panic flared through me, white hot. I kept my gaze everywhere but her, heart thudding in my ears. I paid quickly, barely looking at the cashier, then darted out of line and down 2 departments before I dared to breathe again. I should have left. I should have gone home. But I didn't. I had waited too long for this. I couldn't let fear win. Even if she was here, even if she saw me, I couldn't retreat. Not tonight. I wandered the concourse, nerves sparking, until I slipped into a cheap jewelry shop, the kind filled with racks of plastic shimmer and discount sparkle. It was crowded with girls. I sank onto a stool just to rest a minute. Then, before I could react, one of them walked right up and pierced my ear. What the? Before I even turned to look, she did the other one too. Snap. Done. There you go, hun. Free piercing day. Lucky you. My hands trembled. I touched the small gold studs. They shimmered in the mirror. Beautiful. I had wanted this. But how the hell would I explain them? I thanked her anyway and left, dazed. My thoughts were spiraling when I collided with someone at the entrance, knocking them straight to the floor. I'm so sorry here, let me... I froze. A foot away, staring up at me from the floor, was Grandma Judy. She let me help her up, smiling kindly. Thank you, dear. I turned fast, ready to disappear. But, miss, oh, miss! I turned back. She was holding out my purse. Shit! I stepped forward, took it with trembling fingers. You look very familiar, dear. Do I know your mother? Have we met before? Her words sliced through me like ice. What could I possibly say? I'd never been a convincing liar, and this was Grandma Judy sharp as a hawk and twice as stubborn. Every muscle in my body tensed, but I managed to whisper a single word. No. Then I turned and walked away, as fast as my heels would allow, pulse hammering so hard I could hear it. By the time I reached the exit, my hands were shaking. Had she recognized me? Maybe she was just curious. Maybe. But Grandma Judy raised my mother, and Mom was a professional sneak. So where did you think she learned it from? I walked home in a fog, trying to breathe through the panic, hoping Grandma Judy would let the whole thing slip from her mind. Once inside, I threw myself into distraction. I tried on the new clothes I'd bought, feeling their fresh fabric cling and drape in new ways. Then I grabbed a snack, changed into pajamas, and put on some mindless television. I thought I'd calm down. That is, until I made the fatal rookie mistake. I fell asleep without wiping off my makeup. The next morning, I woke to the crime scene on my pillowcase foundation and lipstick smeared across the fabric like a confession. I panicked, hands trembling as I yanked the case off, not even sure if I knew how to get makeup stains out. In a frenzy, I tossed it in the washer, dumped detergent like I was putting out a fire, and set it to run. Only then did I stop and breathe. I got dressed in my new skirt and blouse, slipping into gym shoes for a casual look. A little makeup lighter than yesterday, but still enough to feel like Megan and I was ready for breakfast. As the washer churned behind me, I sat at the kitchen table, crunching cereal, and silently praying that Grandma Judy hadn't recognized me. I refused to waste the weekend hiding. I'd waited too long for this. Once the dishes were rinsed and the pillowcase was spinning in the dryer, I reapplied a dab of lipstick, grabbed my purse, and stepped outside, determined to enjoy the day. That's when I ran into him. Josh, my best friend. He rounded the corner, and we stopped dead like gunslingers in a dusty showdown. I froze. If I ran inside, I'd give myself away. If I stood there, he might see through me. My only option was to move forward. So I did. I stepped toward him, 2 strides, my heels thumping like drum beats. He opened his mouth, recognition dawning, but before he could speak, a voice cut through the air. "There you are! I've got that skirt ready, honey, so come back inside and I'll fix that button for you." Grandma Judy. I spun so fast my skirt flared, then bolted back into the house, clutching my purse like a quarterback protecting the winning touchdown. Josh was out there, confused, but thankfully silent. And this was still better than him finding out who Megan really was. "I thought that was you yesterday." Her voice was calm but sharp as she closed the door behind us. She looked me over from head to toe, as if memorizing every detail. Then she pulled out a chair at the kitchen table. "Sit down, dear. Tell me what you had planned for today." I sat because my knees were weak. My mouth opened, but no words came out. My mind was a tangled mess of fear and embarrassment. "You look so nice," she said softly. "Why don't we go to my house? We can talk a while, and maybe later I'll make us a nice dinner." I could only nod. Anything I said would betray me. We walked to her car parked out front, which explained why I hadn't seen her yesterday. Josh, standing at the curb, waved awkwardly as I got in. Grandma Judy said nothing until we were halfway down the street. "You look just like your mother when she was your age. Did you know that?" No," I muttered. "Well, you do. And you are just as pretty as she was, maybe more so." She gave me a warm smile, and I felt my stomach flip. "I'm sure you're scared, but there's no need. I won't tell anyone. Not unless you tell me first, okay?" "Okay, I guess," I whispered. "What's your name?" For a heartbeat, I froze. Then, squeaky and uncertain, "Megan." After that, she didn't mention my clothes or makeup. She just spoke to me as if Megan was real, and somehow that made me feel safe. We talked for a while, and eventually, she asked about my wardrobe. I didn't want to answer, but I admitted that Greenwood Plaza had been my mission to buy more things for Megan. I told her the ridiculous story about my accidental ear piercing, and by the time I finished, we were both laughing, the tension finally breaking. Not long after, the doorbell rang. "Be a dear and get that, Megan?" I obeyed, without a second thought. The woman on the porch was a stranger, smiling politely. "Hello? Linda!" Grandma Judy's voice floated from behind me. "Come in, let me introduce you to Megan." Linda looked like she could have been Grandma Judy's glamorous younger sister, slightly taller, effortlessly graceful. I murmured a greeting, then quietly retreated to the kitchen, grabbing a soda and giving them space. While they chatted, I slipped downstairs. I'd always known those basement closets were crammed with treasures dresses from Grandma Judy, from Mom, even from Aunt Jennifer. I'd never dared open them before. I never wanted to explain my curiosity. But now, I swung the doors open and stared. Rows of skirts, dresses, blouses, purses and belts, shoes stacked like candy boxes. Some pieces were retro, some timeless, and I wanted them all. My fingers traced the fabrics, imagining what I'd look like in each outfit. But reality pulled me back. My parents would never understand. Dad would explode. Mom would try not to, but she'd still see me as broken, as wrong. A closet full of women's clothes in my room would be like waving a flag. "Here I am, your sissy son." With a sigh, I closed the doors and climbed back upstairs, the dream still clinging to me like a second skin. It had been well over an hour since I'd gone down to the basement, and I figured by now Linda would have been long gone. But when I came back up, she was still there, chatting with Grandma Judy like it was the most natural thing in the world. I lingered near the hallway, trying not to intrude, when I heard her say something about her grandson picking her up. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. "Megan, dear, would you get that?" Grandma Judy called out. I opened the door. He was tall, at least half a foot taller than me, with this easy, lopsided smile that made me forget to breathe for a second. He stepped inside, clearly here to get his grandmother. But his eyes, they didn't stay on her, not for long. He kept glancing at me. I didn't know what to do with that. They left a few minutes later, and as soon as the door clicked shut behind them, Grandma Judy turned to me with a knowing look. Find anything you like down there? I tried to play it cool. Yeah, I saw a few things that were kind of nice, I guess. She raised an eyebrow. Megan, let's not lie to one another. I'll bet you found a lot of things you liked. Wished you could have them. Am I right? I didn't say anything, just nodded. That's nice to hear, she said too calmly. Because Linda, the woman who just left, mentioned her grandson Logan has a special event next week. Some sort of sports banquet. And she wondered. No, I blurted, even before she finished. If maybe you'd like to go with him? She finished anyway, smiling sweetly. I stared at her like she'd grown horns. No, I repeated. Oh, come on, Megan, she coaxed. You looked darling today, and with just a bit of help. No, you'd be the belle of the ball, right? And he is kind of cute, isn't he? I refused to answer. I mean, yes. Logan was cute in a broad-shouldered, soft-eyed, nightmare-inducing kind of way, but there was no universe where I was about to say that out loud. Not to her. Inside, I was in knots. I wanted to go. Of course I did. The idea of putting on something elegant, of being seen, chosen. It made my stomach flip and my chest ache in ways I didn't fully understand. But that's all it could be. An idea. My parents would never allow it. Hell, they'd probably disown me for just thinking about it. But Grandma Judy? She had that look again. That scheming glint that Mom sometimes got when she was trying to manipulate Dad. And it was no coincidence they were cut from the same cloth. So I had to stay alert. Very alert. Otherwise, I'd end up walking into something I desperately wanted, but absolutely couldn't afford. Thankfully, she let it go. By nightfall, I had to head back home. She didn't ask me to change, didn't say a word about what I was wearing. She just said she'd be over tomorrow and drove me back. As I undressed that night, I silently begged the universe that she wouldn't say anything to my parents. I scrubbed off my makeup this time, folded and stashed every piece of clothing like it was evidence in a crime scene. My parents were due home sometime after noon. I wasn't taking any chances. The next morning, I cleaned everything room, kitchen, pillowcases. By the time my folks walked through the door, it was like nothing had ever happened. Mom took a look around and smiled. You didn't burn the house down. I'm impressed. She asked me what I did all weekend. I told the truth well, most of it. I said I went to Greenwood Plaza. That I ran into Grandma Judy and hung out at her place. I didn't say what I was wearing at the time. Later that afternoon, I heard voices drifting upstairs. I paused outside my door, barely breathing, straining to listen. Well, Mom said, did he do it? Just like you predicted, Grandma Judy replied, almost proudly. And I cannot believe what I'm hearing, Dad chimed in. Jason is dressing up like a girl? In public? He was nervous, of course, Grandma Judy said, especially when he saw me. But he didn't run away. And he's a real doll, by the way. Just cute as can be. He's got a lovely figure, too. Honestly, with a little help, I doubt even you could pick him out of a crowd. Jason? A real doll? Dad's voice went sharp. I'm going to talk to him. Put an end to this nonsense right now. No, you're not, Mom shot back. You remember what the book said. Threats will just make him hide it better. I'd rather help him, guide him, give him the tools he needs if this is something that doesn't go away. He met a boy, Grandma Judy added smoothly, and the boy wants to take Megan to an awards banquet. I think this could be a perfect way to see how Jason really feels. If he says no, there's your answer. But if he says yes, and if you help him, he just might do it. He needs help with his hair, some makeup pointers. But he needs to feel safe, or he'll shut down and retreat. There was a long silence. Then Dad said, How old is this boy? Almost the same age, maybe a little older. Why? Older boys and younger girls mean trouble. Someone needs to set some ground rules. I'll talk to him about what's proper. Oh, for God's sake, Mom snapped. What kind of trouble do you think he's going to get into? He's still a boy, just not the way you want him to be. Her footsteps came up the stairs before I could fully process what was happening. I scrambled back to my bed, heart in my throat, trying to look casual when the door opened. She stepped inside, closed the door behind her. We stared at each other. You know, she began, voice softer than I expected. Almost every Halloween since you were 6 or 7, you wanted to be a princess, or a fairy, or some other kind of girl. You always threw a fit when I said no. I couldn't move. And then, when you were 12, I caught you completely dressed up, middle of summer. You'd taken things from my closet. You tried to lie, but I knew. I've seen signs ever since, little traces. A smudge of mascara, something out of place. I never said anything because I wasn't sure. She paused. But now I am. And just like that, there it was. No more secrets. No more pretending. Mom knew. Grandma Judy knew. And now the only person I had to be honest with was me. We left you alone for the weekend to see if you could manage on your own, Mom said, her tone cool but not cold. And then, Grandma Judy found you strolling through Greenwood Plaza, dressed as a girl. There was a pause. Not long. Just long enough to feel like a trap was being baited. Your father is very upset with you right now, she added, her voice tightening just slightly. But based on what Grandma Judy says, I'm going to assume you've been dressing like this for a while. In secret. I looked down, said nothing. And, she continued, based on what she saw yesterday, I know I'm right. Then she dropped at the sentence that hit harder than any slap. So, because you like to dress as a girl, your father and I have decided that you can accept that date with the young man you met yesterday. My head jerked up. But Mom! No buts, young man, she snapped, eyes narrowing. Answer me this simple question. Have you, at any point in the past, ever dressed as a girl just because you wanted to? She already knew the answer. That's why she asked it. I nodded slowly. Her mouth tightened into something that wasn't quite a smile. Exactly. This is no different. Just a little more public. It made no sense. She was the one who had caught me that one time 12 years old, wearing her old sundress and made it very clear that she had a son and liked it that way. She hadn't been cruel, but she had been firm. And now? Now she wanted me to get dolled up and be seen in public as someone's date? It didn't track. Not until she said, "It's time you saw what it's really like to be a woman." Ah, there it was. She'd read some book, probably something that promised parents a foolproof way to cure their gender nonconforming kids. I'd overheard her mention it once, her voice hushed and uncertain. We don't just put on a dress and become someone else, dear, she continued, her tone too calm. Being a girl takes effort. It's not all fun and games. Pretty takes work. So since you think being a girl is such a good time, I'm going to help you see it's not so easy. Then she took a long, deliberate breath. Now get dressed. I need to see what I have to work with. I stood there, silent, frozen. Mother, I said finally, I said I would do this for you. I don't need help getting dressed. I was just trying to help. No, you weren't. The words came out sharper than I intended. You wanted to see how I do certain things. I'll handle it, Mom. Her jaw tensed. That muscle in her cheek ticked. The one I knew meant she was swallowing down fury. But she didn't press. She knew she was already on thin ice, and I knew what I had to do. Look so good, so convincing, that they couldn't find fault. I wasn't just dressing up anymore. I was going to prove something. The moment she left, I locked the door and got to work. I stripped off everything and stood in front of the mirror, raw, bare. Then I began rebuilding Megan. Panties first. Then the padded panty, brief, my little secret weapon, bought months ago with carefully hoarded allowance money. It rounded my hips, added shape, erased the angles of boyhood. The birdseed breast forms followed, nestled into my bra like they belonged. The dark green dress I'd bought hugged me perfectly. My heels black, modest added just enough lift. Makeup came next. I kept it subtle but precise. Foundation smoothed, eyes defined in soft gold and brown, lips a muted rose. My hair? It never quite cooperated, but I did the best I could. I checked every angle, smoothed every wrinkle. Then I took one last breath and opened the door. My heart thundered as I stepped into the hallway, then down the stairs. The carpet muffled my steps, but when I hit the hardwood in the foyer, every nerve in my body lit up. Grandma Judy looked up first. She smiled, warm and proud, and motioned me into the family room. My feet didn't want to move, but I made them. I walked in. My parents were sitting side by side on the couch. Both turned to face me. They didn't speak. Dad's face was unreadable. His mouth was a hard line. His eyes sharp and unblinking. I felt like a specimen under glass. Mom's gaze swept me from head to toe. Then, finally, "You look very nice, dear." She hesitated, just enough for me to know that whatever she'd expected, it wasn't this. I had caught her off guard. That hesitation was everything. Dad's mouth opened slightly, then closed again. His jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter. He didn't speak, just kept staring, calculating. I stood motionless, refusing to flinch. Then I moved gracefully, carefully, and sat down beside Grandma Judy, locking my knees together, hands in my lap like I'd practiced in the mirror. She reached over, gently patted my hand. No one said anything for a long moment. Then I sat there and waited for the judgment, the verdict, whatever came next. Because I had already stepped into it, and there was no going back now. I would be safe, I told myself. Or Dad would take off his belt. There was no in-between. Not in that room, not with the air so thick you could slice it. It was one or the other, acceptance or punishment. Then came the clearing of a throat, a sound like judgment. Ahem. We all looked at Dad. He was sitting stiffly, hands clasped, jaw clenched tight enough to crack concrete. "For the record," he said slowly, "I want to hear it out loud. Yes or no. Do you like dressing as a girl?" The answer should have been obvious. What else would I be doing in a dress, wearing heels and makeup, with my knees locked together like my life depended on posture? But he wanted to hear me say it. "Yes," I answered, voice tight and trembling. I didn't flinch, but I couldn't breathe either. Because if I lied, it was over. But if I told the truth, it still might be. Dad blinked, looked me over again. "You look so—" His voice trailed, unable to finish the thought. "I never would have thought it possible. But you're still very young. What happens next? What if we let you go with this boy and he tries to kiss you? What then?" He wasn't yelling. That was somehow worse. "I just don't know about all this," he added, shoulders sagging. And I have to say, I'm disappointed. I raised a son, not a daughter." I sat still, staring at the floor. My throat burned. Tears prickled the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I couldn't cry now. I wouldn't give him that. Did he hate me? I was certain he did. I'd shattered something between us. Something I wasn't sure could be rebuilt. Then Mom stepped in. "Jason," she said, voice cooler now, "if we let you dress up once in a while, would that satisfy you?" But before I could speak, Grandma Judy cut in. "I think that maybe he should spend some time full-time as a girl. That way, everyone can see what this really means." She paused, letting her words hang. "He could stay with me for a while. I'm alone, and could use the company. You two can visit whenever you want, without having to confront this every day." My heart lurched. That was it. That was the way. Mom nodded slowly. "That could work." All eyes turned to Dad, the final judge. He looked straight at me again, that look that made me want to shrink. "If your mother is right, that this isn't going away, then I don't see I have much choice." He rubbed the back of his neck like it hurt to say the words. "I still don't like it. I hate that you wear dresses. Boys don't wear dresses, but fine. You can stay with Grandma Judy. We'll check in. Unannounced. Often. And if this turns out to be some kind of phase, fine. You can come home anytime. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to leap across the room and throw my arms around him, but I stayed frozen in my seat until Grandma Judy's hand gently touched my knee, grounding me. I gave a tiny nod. It was happening. We didn't speak as Grandma Judy led me upstairs. I felt like I was walking through fog, dreamlike and slow, like this couldn't really be real. In my room, I started gathering what few clothes I had, the ones that belonged to Megan. Then Dad appeared in the doorway. Jazz! He stopped himself. Megan! I turned. My hands froze on the bedspread. I just wanted to say. He looked pained, like each word scraped his throat. I don't like this, but if you're going to do it, you do it right. You understand? Anything less might reflect badly on the whole family. If people find out, I don't want them thinking we raised a clown. I nodded, throat too tight to answer. He shifted on his feet. Can I trust you to do your best? It wasn't approval, but it was something. I launched into him without thinking, wrapping my arms around his waist and burying my face in his shirt. He hesitated just a heartbeat, then his arms came around me. It was the first time he'd hugged me in years. You better take your computer, he muttered. I'll get it down to the car once you unhook it. That was it. That was all he said. An hour later, I was riding shotgun in Grandma Judy's car, watching my house disappear in the rearview mirror. I wasn't surprised by Dad's initial reaction. That had always been inevitable. What confused me was his final words. Do your best. He didn't accept Megan. Not really. But somehow he wanted her to be convincing. Mom, on the other hand, was a different puzzle. Cold, reserved, willing to help but from a distance. She hadn't once said anything about wanting a daughter, never played dress-up with me, never encouraged the soft parts of me. To her, boys were just men in training, smaller, clumsier men. But she'd read that book, the one that told her about kids like me. And I guess that changed something. Maybe not in her heart, but in her strategy. She was trying. That counted, didn't it? I stared out the window, my stomach knotting with everything I hadn't said. I was doing it. I was going to be a girl, really be a girl for 2 weeks. It was a dream I'd had for years. And now that it was here, all I could feel was fear. Because I knew Grandma Judy. I knew she'd expect full commitment, lace, ruffles, ribbons, maybe even curls. All the femininity I'd never dared to express fully before. No sweatshirts and jeans here. I could already feel the storm brewing. I wanted freedom, but not like that. I didn't want to become some porcelain doll version of a girl. Still, I couldn't back out now. 2 weeks. That's what I told myself. 2 weeks to find out if this was really who I was, or if it was just a dream I needed to let go of. When we arrived, we didn't talk much. My room once my mother's still had floral wallpaper and an old vanity. I unpacked, set up my computer, hung what few clothes I had, then found Grandma Judy out on the patio. She handed me a glass of lemonade, sat quietly. We hadn't said 20 words since we got here. But that was fine. Words would come. I had 2 weeks to figure out who I was. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't doing it alone. Megan, Grandma Judy said gently, resting her hand on mine. I know you're worried about your mom and dad, but they agreed to this. They didn't do that lightly. That means they believe what you're doing is real, not a stunt or a phase. And if you want everyone to see what we already know, you need to commit not just on the outside, but deep inside too. In how you walk, how you talk, how you carry yourself. You don't need hormones or surgery or anything drastic. Just presence, confidence, belief. I nodded, though I wasn't sure she saw. I was still stuck on the look my parents gave me, half disbelief, half disappointment. Like I'd pulled a thread they didn't know existed, and now the whole sweater of their expectations was unraveling. Megan? She said again. Yeah, I replied softly. I heard you. I'll try. And I meant it. Even if my hands still trembled, even if I hadn't quite let myself believe this was real yet, I wanted to try. That day, I kept to myself, rearranging the furniture in my new room, claiming the space one shelf and drawer at a time. I barely slept that night. My thoughts churned too loudly. When morning finally came, Grandma Judy was already waiting, coffee in hand, ready to take me into the forbidden kingdom, the basement closets. But she didn't hover, didn't micromanage. Instead, she stepped back and let me dig through the racks. To my surprise, she let me choose what I wanted. By midday, my closet was full. Not a boy's closet, not a fantasy closet. A real girl's wardrobe built one piece at a time with my own hands. I changed into a green and white pleated skirt with a white sleeveless top. Cheerleader cute. I loved it. When I walked out, Grandma Judy simply smiled. Lunch, she said, as if I hadn't just walked in transformed. Over grilled cheese and tomato soup, she asked, Would you like to get your hair and nails done? Yes, I said instantly, no hesitation. That was an easy yes. By the time we arrived at the salon, I was a bundle of nerves. But the moment they sat me down and the stylist began to fuss with my hair, something in me settled. Half an hour passed in a blur of soft fingers and quiet music. Then came the manicure my nails shaped and painted a soft, elegant red. And when I saw myself in the mirror, I almost gasped. My hair framed my face in curls, loose waves cascading around my cheeks and neck. Wispy bangs softened my forehead, and with the nails to match, the girl I saw didn't look like a costume. She looked real. I didn't want to leave. But we did. And the next stop was a department store's lingerie section, where Grandma Judy, without a shred of embarrassment, filled my arms with panties, slips, bras, nightgowns, and panty briefs. I was stunned, overwhelmed, and secretly thrilled. Not a single person in the store gave me a second look. That evening, after unpacking our haul, she guided me to the vanity. For the banquet, she said, I have a dress in mind, but I want your makeup done professionally. I nodded. There was no arguing with her, and besides, I wanted it. The next few days, I explored my new wardrobe, trying on different combinations. Some outfits made me feel radiant, others didn't. I started to figure out what worked, what flattered, what felt like me. If something didn't click, I returned it to the basement and searched for something better. And then the day of the banquet arrived. We returned to the salon. The same stylist worked her magic, this time adding a small hairpiece that blended seamlessly into my own hair. The end result? Something out of a classic romance movie. Elegant, timeless. Afterward, we stopped at a makeup studio. A soft foundation, delicate eye work, just enough blush to make me look alive, but not caked in color. When she was done, I looked like I belonged on the arm of a date. At home, Grandma Judy followed me to my room. Go ahead and undress, she said, tone brisk but kind. I have a surprise. Nervous, I stripped to my underwear. For the first time, someone else saw my hidden craft, how I had built my body with birdseed breasts and padded panties. She didn't laugh cruelly, didn't scold. She chuckled, then opened a velvet-lined box. Inside were a pair of prosthetic breast forms, realistic, soft, warm to the touch. A little adhesive, and these will be part of you, Megan. She applied them herself. I stood still, trying not to tremble. They clung perfectly, looked real, felt real. I looked down and saw not just shapes, but curves. My curves. Then came the lower half. She had me turn around, and I felt cool glue against my skin before she applied seamless padding to round my hips and backside. When I turned back to the mirror, the image looking back was unmistakably, undeniably feminine. Now, the final touch, she said, holding up a black satin garment I didn't recognize. She wrapped it around my torso and began fastening hooks. Then came the laces tightening, compressing, reshaping. At first it was tolerable, but soon I felt the constriction settle deep into my core. My back straightened, my waist narrowed. The corselet made me glide instead of walk. And with that satin diamond cinching my figure, I felt impossibly graceful. She showed me how to position my breasts properly in the bra. Then I sat and rolled up my stockings. Garter tabs. A new experience. She guided me with quiet efficiency, then stood back and surveyed her work. "Now," she whispered, "the dress." She pulled it out like it was a crown jewel. Floor-length black chiffon, with an empire waist and a neckline that dipped just enough to make me blush. Layers of sheer fabric floated over the satin underskirt. The shoes were delicate, strappy black heels that made my ankles look dainty and slim. I stepped into the dress. The fabric whispered around me like mist, a bit of perfume. Pale pink lipstick, tiny gold studs in my ears. Then I looked in the mirror, and I froze. Because I didn't see Jason anymore. Not even a little. I saw Megan, not a costume, not a game, a girl on the edge of something real. My breasts curved gently over the top of my bra, just enough to tease. My hips flared from the corselet, smooth and soft. The dress hugged me like it had been made just for this moment. I couldn't breathe, but I couldn't stop smiling either, because for the first time in my life, I was the girl I had always dreamed I could be. As I stood in front of the mirror, barely breathing, staring at the girl I'd become, Grandma Judy stepped up behind me and gently handed me a small satin clutch. She kissed my cheek, her lips warm and soft, and walked me into the front room. My heels clicked softly on the floor, a sound that had grown familiar and thrilling. And then I waited. For him. My first date. With a boy. My hands clutched the bag like a lifeline, nerves jangling under every inch of satin and chiffon. Logan arrived with his mom, dressed in a tuxedo that made him look older, more polished handsome. But I could see it in his face. He was just as nervous as I was. With my heels on, we were nearly the same height. When our mothers fussed over us for pictures, we looked on the surface like a perfectly normal couple. Smiling, flushed, unsure. Logan offered me his arm like he was copying a movie, and I looped mine through his. It felt stiff at first, then oddly natural. His mom drove us to the banquet, making small talk while I mostly stared out the window and tried not to vibrate out of my skin. The venue was bigger than I'd imagined: bright lights, balloons, tables dressed in white, boys in suits, girls in glitter, and me, floating in with a boy beside me. No one stared, no one pointed, no one recognized me. Not even Brianna Miss Popular herself when she joined me on the way to the ladies' room, chattering about the music and the food and how everyone looks so cute tonight. She walked beside me like we'd always been friends, completely unaware, and I had to bite my lip to keep from giggling. She'd never even looked at me before. As a boy, I didn't exist to her, but tonight I belonged. Throughout the night, I was swept in sensations that had once only existed in dreams. The bounce of my breasts with each step, the whisper of my hair against my cheek, the soft cling of lipstick on my lips, the faint scent of perfume I left behind me like a secret. And Logan, his eyes drifting to me again and again, as if checking to make sure I hadn't vanished. After dinner, we danced. His hand on my waist, his smile nervous but sweet. I moved the way I thought a girl should move. Graceful, soft, effortless. And then, through the swirl of music and bodies, I saw them. My parents. Sitting at a table. My stomach dropped. They looked at us, and I froze, unsure if they recognized me or not. Before I could find out, Logan led us further across the dance floor. We were nearly at the far edge when I felt a firm tap on his shoulder. "Sorry," a voice said, "but I'd like to dance with my daughter." Logan blinked, surprised, then stepped aside. Dad stood there, taller than both of us, formal and stern. He pulled me into his arms and led me into a slow sway. His hand was broad against my back, but not rough. His eyes locked on mine. "You look spectacular, Megan." I blinked. Had I heard that right? "Grandma Judy told us what you'd be wearing," he added. "And I'm glad she did." His gaze softened, just barely. "I never imagined you'd turn out this way. But I'll admit, you're quite lovely. That's the hardest part, I think." I couldn't find words. My throat clenched, my heart raced. And judging by how that young man keeps looking at you, he gave me a sideways smile. He thinks so too. We didn't speak again until the music faded, and he led me toward the table where Mom waited. I wanted to run. Instead, I stood there, spine straight, trying to breathe without shaking. Mom looked up, her expression unreadable. "You seem happy," she said. "Are you? I mean, being here, like this." Her tone was guarded, careful, but my answer wasn't. "Oh yes, Mom, I am." She looked at me, then really looked. The hair, the dress, the curves, the way I carried myself, it was all real now. "You look quite pretty, Megan," she said finally. "Have fun this evening." That was it. That was her approval. Subtle, reluctant, but real. I returned to my table, barely sitting before Logan met me there. He must have seen something in my face, because he whispered, "Come on, let's get some air." Outside, under the stars, he turned to me. "Meg." I faced him. A tear escaped before I could stop it. He stepped forward, took me into his arms, and kissed me. Right on the lips, soft, hesitant. Then again, longer, firmer. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. He smiled. I giggled. I couldn't help it. It felt like too many things at once, sweet, confusing, electric. That night, he won his award for wrestling, and afterward, his mom drove us back to Grandma Judy's. At the doorstep, with her watching, he kissed me again. Just a peck. I floated inside, but the whirlwind hadn't settled. I was still spinning from everything: the dance, the kiss, my dad calling me lovely, my mom pretending not to be impressed, then clearly being impressed. Boys weren't supposed to kiss other boys, but I liked it. I liked being Megan. That part was no longer in question. Inside, I found them: Mom, Dad, Grandma Judy waiting in the living room. As I stepped in, Mom rose and came toward me. Instinctively, I took a step back. She stopped, surprised. Then she reached for my hand. "Megan," she said softly. "It's a pretty name, and it suits you." I said nothing, just held her gaze. "I watched you all night, and not once did you act like a boy. You're serious about this. That much is clear now." Her voice wavered slightly. "But what do we tell people? Your friends, your classmates, your teachers, your Aunt Amber? What about school? You can't just disappear and reappear as a girl." She was right, completely right. I stood there, in this elegant gown, my heart full and fragile, and realized she wasn't trying to talk me out of it. She was asking how to make it possible. She and Dad had clearly talked about it, and she didn't sound like she was backing away. Grandma Judy told me to head upstairs. I climbed quietly, thoughts racing. A few minutes later, Mom and Grandma came into my room. Without speaking, they began helping me undress. And that's when Mom saw it. When I turned, still in my panties, reaching for my nightgown, she saw my breasts. Real enough in the soft light, the seams hidden perfectly. She gasped, but said nothing. I slipped the sheer nightgown over my head. It floated down my body, clinging slightly to my new curves. Under it, I didn't look like a boy pretending anymore. I looked like a daughter. And for the first time, I think she saw that too. Grandma Judy handed me a robe and gently nudged me toward the bathroom. "Wash off that beautiful face before you turn the pillowcase into a crime scene," she teased with a wink. I did as I was told. The hot water helped loosen the makeup, but not the knots in my stomach. When I returned to my room, wrapped in layers of chiffon and lace, they were gone, but I could hear murmurs drifting up the stairs. I tiptoed down, heart skipping with every step, my bare feet making no sound. Dad saw me at the bottom of the stairs and motioned me in. I sat beside him, not perched on the edge like a guest afraid to wrinkle the cushions, but settled, present. My robe swished softly as I moved, my legs tucked neatly to one side. Dad's arm came around my shoulder. Not stiff, not reluctant, just there. Mom was watching me. Her expression was tight, unreadable, but not angry. Grandma Judy, as always, looked like she already knew what would happen next. "It looks like we have some decisions to make," Mom began, her voice even and cool. "Serious decisions, Megan." The name didn't even catch anymore. It settled into the air like something that had always been there. And since it's obvious to all of us that you'll never be happy as a boy, we need to find a way to let you live as the girl you want to be. But you're still not an adult. That means the final decisions rest with us, even though we'll ask for your input along the way. She paused. "Now go to bed. We'll talk in the morning." I nodded. Not because I was ready to sleep, but because there was nothing else to say just yet. That night, sleep came in short fits my mind, replaying every glance, every word, every possibility. I was on the edge of something huge, and I had no idea where it would land. The next morning, I woke early, did my makeup with practiced ease, brushed out my hair until it floated neatly around my face, and dressed in a faded denim skirt and a crisp top. I looked like any other girl might on a lazy summer morning. In the kitchen, Grandma Judy and I ate breakfast in companionable silence before she drove me back to my house. As I stepped out of the car, I spotted him, Josh. He was in his front yard, looking straight at me. I didn't wave. I wasn't ready. Inside, Mom and Dad were at the kitchen table, coffee cups in hand, eyes expectant. Dad didn't waste time. "We've made our decision," he said. "Come sit." I did, with Grandma Judy settling in beside me. "Since you insist that you are a girl and want to live that way, we're going to let you. For the summer, to start with." My heart skipped. "You'll stay here. With us. If you can make it work here at home, then come fall. We'll talk about school. But know this, we can't afford a private school. That means, if this continues, you'll be attending your school. But as a girl." I stared, heart racing. "We'll take care of the family," Dad continued. "Your mother will help you with girl things, hygiene, clothes, that sort of thing. After that, we'll take it day by day. We don't agree with what you're doing," he added, "but we accept that you believe it. So we're letting you try. Any questions?" I had dozens. What about gym class, changing rooms, my birth certificate? But none of those seemed like questions for right now. Not with them watching me, waiting. I swallowed and said the only thing I could. Yes. That one word changed everything. Grandma Judy suggested we bring over my vanity and the clothes I'd picked out. Dad said he'd handle it. Then, with that same ominous tone parents use right before a talk, they told me to go outside. And I knew what that meant. Josh. He was still out there. My best friend, my brother in all but blood, and the one person who could unravel everything with a single look or word. Josh stood on the porch. When I opened the door, he turned. We locked eyes. His gaze didn't flinch. Then, "You going queer on me, Jazz?" That word. His favorite insult. It stung, but it didn't surprise me. I stood straighter, spoke clearly. "No, not queer. I'm going, girl. It's easier. And the name is Megan." His eyes drifted my hair, my face, my clothes. They lingered on my chest, but he didn't leer, just observed. Silence stretched between us like a tightrope. "Those real?" he asked, pointing at my breasts. I could have lied, but part of me wanted it to be true so badly, it almost didn't feel like a lie. Yes, I said simply. He said nothing at first. Then he stepped back. "Want to walk to the drugstore? Gotta pick up Mom's pills." I blinked. He waited. I stepped forward. And we walked. Side by side, down familiar sidewalks, past houses we'd both thrown baseballs at as kids. He didn't say much, but I could feel him watching me, watching how I moved, how I smiled, how I kept brushing my skirt down, even though it didn't need it. He was testing me, and I passed. Because somewhere on the way back, he called me Megan. Just like that. When we got to my house, he turned. "Come over, meet Mom." I hesitated. His mom knew me, loved me like her own. Would she still? But if I ran now, I'd be running forever. So I smiled, nodded, and stepped forward. With Josh beside me, for the first time. I felt like maybe I didn't have to face this world alone. Josh's mom, Mrs. P, was a tiny woman, barely taller than I was in flats, always smiling, always warm. She'd practically helped raise both of us when we were little bandage-skinned knees, fed us snacks, and scolded us equally when we got too loud on the porch. Josh opened the door and waved me in like it was nothing, like I wasn't standing there in a skirt, breasts softly outlined under my blouse, my hair tucked perfectly behind one ear. My mouth was dry. I could barely breathe. Mrs. P came around the corner, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her face beaming until she got a good look at me. There was a moment, one flicker of realization in her eyes. Recognition, shock, a blink. Then the smile returned, as easy as ever. "This is Megan," Josh said casually. "She and I are old friends." Her eyes lingered on me for a second longer. Then, with a brightness that made me want to cry with relief, she said, "You're quite pretty, Megan." I had no idea Josh had such good taste. Trying to keep it light, I smirked. "Well, men are all easy, aren't they?" Mrs. P burst out laughing, her face red with amusement. Josh didn't. He took a step back, face unreadable. My heart sank. I should go," I said quickly, already retreating. I didn't look back until I got home. By the time I opened the front door, Grandma Judy and Dad were gone. Mom was curled up in the family room, knitting, her hands moving like she wasn't even thinking about it. I told her everything what I wore, what Josh said, what his mother said, what I said back, and then I asked her why Josh had reacted that way, why he suddenly seemed so far away. And then, Mom started to laugh. I turned to leave, humiliated, but she called after me. "Wait!" She patted the seat beside her. "Come here," I sat. "You were right, Megan. Men are easy," she said, grinning. "But that's not why Josh acted the way he did. He liked you before, honey. And now he's probably attracted to you." My eyes widened. "Think about it," she continued. "He sees a pretty girl, but he knows it's you, and that messes with his head. He can't admit he's attracted to you without questioning what that says about him. You called boys easy, and he suddenly saw himself in that category." I blinked, stunned. "Give him time," she said. "If he comes back, it'll mean he's accepted you. If he doesn't—" Her voice softened. "Then at least you'll know where you stand." I sat quietly beside her for a while, watching the needles flash in her fingers. Then the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there stood Ashley. Ashley from 5 doors down. Same birthday as me. Same school, same everything, except she had always been who I wanted to be, bright, beautiful, effortless. She threw her arms around me in a blur of excitement. "This is so cool! You look fantastic! When Josh told me I just had to see you for myself." She said it all as one breathless sentence. I grinned so hard my cheeks hurt. Ashley was glowing. Porcelain skin, wide blue eyes, and a laugh that made you feel like you were in on the joke before she told it. That's why I always wanted to be her. "Courtney and I are going to Greenwood Plaza with my mom," she said. "Wanna come?" Wanna come? Did I ever? I ran to ask Mom, who handed me some money, smiled, and told me to have fun. Ashley's mom drove us. She didn't blink at me not once. Courtney was waiting, and when we were dropped off, we promised to meet back at the same spot, same time. And then, I was malling, which, according to Courtney, was a sacred rite of teen girlhood. It was chaos, fun chaos, loud, overwhelming, laughter-filled chaos. They tried on outfits they had no intention of buying. They posed, critiqued, twirled, giggled. I followed, hesitant at first, until they pulled me into a fitting room and tossed clothes at me. First, capri pants. Cute, casual. I could work with that. Then, the dress. Red, tight, low cut, short. My body, everything I had sculpted and padded and carefully shaped, was suddenly on display. My breasts pushed just over the neckline, my waist curved inward, my hips flared under the hem that barely reached mid-thigh. I stepped out and their jaws dropped. "Megan!" Ashley gasped. "You look hot!" Courtney burst out laughing. "Girl, if you want Josh, just wear that. He'll melt into a puddle." I blushed so hard I thought I might ignite. Josh. Mike. The kiss. The idea of Josh kissing me flickered across my mind, and I quickly shoved it aside. No, he was my friend. Just my friend. We met Ashley's mom, who drove us home. When I walked in, Dad was there. "Your things are upstairs," he said. "Vanity, clothes, everything's set up." I thanked him, then retreated to clean up and change. At dinner, Mom asked how the day went. Dad asked about Josh. "There's nothing to tell," I said, and I meant it. For now. The next morning, Mom and I went grocery shopping. I wore jeans for the first time as Megan. They fit just right. Mom said I looked great. After lunch, Ashley and Courtney stopped by. We sat on the porch, gossiping and people-watching like seasoned pros. Josh and Derek rode by with Travis. They slowed down, smiled at us. Courtney sighed. "Derek is so hot, he's on fire." I rolled my eyes. "Derek is a dork," Ashley nudged me. "Josh looked at you." "No, he didn't." "He so did," she said. "And he's into you." "He's my best friend," I said quickly. They both laughed. And the next day, I'd learned just how wrong I was. That fall, I walked into school wearing my name like armor. Megan. It was on the attendance sheet, on my locker, in the mouths of teachers who'd known me as someone else. And nobody said a word. Some looked twice, some whispered behind cupped hands. But no one said anything out loud. And by the second week, even the stares faded. Courtney and Ashley made sure I wasn't alone in the hallways. They flanked me like bodyguards, gossiping about teachers, homework, boys, and making it clear to everyone that I belonged with them. Josh? He played it cool. Said hi in the mornings, smiled across the cafeteria, offered rides home when it rained. But it wasn't like before. Something had shifted. There was a gentleness in how he spoke to me now, a softness I hadn't noticed when we were just friends. One night in October, he waited outside after school with 2 sodas and 0 expectations. We sat on the swings by the playground, silent for a long while. "You're different," he said eventually. I looked at him, bracing myself. "But you're still you," he added. "And I think, maybe I like both versions." That was it. No fireworks, no declarations, just a quiet truth between 2 people figuring themselves out. From then on, we were something new. Not quite a couple, not just friends, somewhere in the middle. He held my hand sometimes, let it go when others were around. I didn't push, I understood. My parents never stopped learning either. Mom taught me how to handle my hair on humid days. Dad knocked before entering my room. On weekends, they let me pick dinner. On weeknights, they let me just be. There were still hard moments. One substitute teacher called out the wrong name during roll call, and the silence that followed cut deeper than any insult. Once, a kid in the hallway asked too loudly if I was really a girl, and Courtney stepped in before I could even blink. But the good days outnumbered the bad. I joined the yearbook club, posed for class photos, signed my name in loopy cursive on the cover of someone's notebook. I lived. I laughed. I cried over rom-coms. I tried red lipstick and hated it, tried it again and loved it. And when graduation came, I walked the stage in heels that pinched my toes, a dress that sparkled under the gym lights, and a name that finally felt like mine. Megan. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was mine. And it was real. It's strange I can hardly remember what it felt like to be someone else. That old body, that old name, they feel like a story I was once told, not something I lived. Faded, distant, like a dream that slips away before you're fully awake. Josh and I went to the winter dance a few nights ago. I'd been so afraid he might notice something, might flinch or step back. But he didn't. He just saw me. We danced. We laughed. When he pulled me closer, I let him. His hand grazed my side, settled gently above my waist, and I felt like I could fly. Light, warm, real. We didn't go any further. But for the first time in my life, I felt wanted, not in spite of who I was, but because of it. There was something powerful in that, not loud or dramatic, just electric. And now? Now I'm standing in front of the mirror again, slipping into the dress Mom and I made together. Soft sky blue, with lace at the shoulders. When I stepped into it, she cried a little. So did I. We didn't need to say anything. Tonight, Dad is taking me to the father-daughter dance at his work. He picked out the corsage himself, said it reminded him of me, delicate but stubborn. And when I walked into the living room, he smiled like I was the most beautiful girl in the world. But the truth is, I don't need anyone else to tell me who I am anymore. I don't feel like I'm pretending. I feel like I've arrived. And tonight, I get to dance with the first man I ever loved, my dad, not to prove anything, not to earn acceptance, but simply because I'm his daughter. Not because I fooled the world, but because I finally became part of it.